When the media uses press freedom as a cover for propaganda, what should be done? It's critical to discern between propaganda and genuine media freedom. When media outlets spread information in favor of their owners and against those who have been spoken about, it's known as propaganda. This means that if the media only publishes articles that harm a country's reputation, it is not truly free. In African countries, there has been a pattern of propaganda with regard to Western media. But President Traoré is not going to stand by while these kinds of things go unpunished. He forbade the airing of Western media in Burkina Faso. What effects, though, will this choice have? Let's investigate. Burkina Faso has boldly declared its independence and self-sufficiency by preventing Voice of America and the BBC from airing within its borders for a fortnight. This ruling comes in response to claims made by these media sources that the Burkinabe military terminated civilians. The government's reaction emphasizes a more general issue of opposing disinformation and foreign meddling. What makes Burkina Faso want to become an independent nation? Burkina Faso's difficult past of foreign influence, especially from France, is a major contributing factor to the country's ongoing independence movement. Even after gaining independence from French colonial rule in 1960, Burkina Faso, previously known as Upper Volta, kept facing substantial French influence in its social, political, and economic domains. Throughout their post-colonial relationship, Burkina Faso's leaders frequently sided closely with French interests, which left many Burkinabe feeling betrayed and their sovereignty violated. The French influence was evident in several forms, such as military collaboration that resulted in the stationing of French troops in Burkina Faso and economic dependency via trade deals that benefited France. Furthermore, French businesses possess significant influence over important industries like mining, which is essential considering Burkina Faso's abundant mineral resources. This economic entanglements made it more difficult for the nation to break free from a cycle of dependency and determine its own course for growth. French colonialism left its cultural mark on the educational system and the official language, which remained French. This impact frequently overwhelmed native tongues and customs, which made the Burkinabe people feel as though they had lost their cultural legacy and experienced an identity crisis. True independence and self-reliance are not only a political slogan, they are a fundamental goal for liberation on all fronts, including economic and cultural. Regaining control over natural resources, reinventing commercial relations, and cultivating a national identity that respects native languages and cultures are all part of it. The goal of this all-encompassing strategy for independence is to free Burkina Faso from the enduring effects of colonialism and establish a sustainable, independent future. And what happened to the current events? A report that aired on February 25, 2024 served as the initial catalyst for Voice of America and the BBC to suspend operations. Outrage and condemnation resulted from the report's allegation that the Burkinabe military massacred over 200 civilians in two communities in the north. The Burkinabe administration strongly refuted these accusations, describing the findings as biased and erroneous. The long-standing conflict between national sovereignty and foreign media narratives was highlighted by this episode. The suspension of these broadcasters by the government was not a hasty decision. It was viewed as an essential action to safeguard national security and stop false information from spreading. Without careful verification, the reports, according to the Burkinabe authorities, might spark unrest and exacerbate the unstable security situation in the nation. They argued that the suspension was a preventative step to preserve national security and public order. The decision's larger background is the historical and current conflict between African countries and Western media. Western media has come under fire from numerous African politicians and populations for its unduly harsh coverage of conflicts, poverty, and corruption, while downplaying encouraging advancements and successes. They contend that this narrative bias upholds stereotypes and jeopardizes the advancement and dignity of African countries. This episode was viewed in Burkina Faso as a chance to take back control of the narrative and image of the nation. It emphasized how important it is for African nations to be portrayed in the international media in a more impartial and courteous manner. Burkina Faso conveyed a strong statement when it shut down Voice of America and the BBC. It would not put up with what it saw as damaging and unfair reporting that jeopardized its stability and sovereignty. Add your voice to the total liberation of Africa by dropping a comment in the comments section below. Do not forget to like and subscribe for more informative videos like this one. Now let's go on. President Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso is leading the country's transition. A leader who has distinguished himself from his predecessors significantly with his vision and programs. At the age of 36, Traoré took office, bringing with him a youthful energy and a daring style of governance that many Burkinabe found appealing. His unwavering quest of true independence, national pride, and a firm dedication to self-reliance define his leadership. The foundation of Traoré's governance ideology is the conviction that Burkina Faso can only achieve sustainable development by using its natural resources and inventiveness. Because of this conviction, he turned down financial support from the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, two organizations notorious for placing onerous requirements on their loans. According to Traoré, Burkina Faso's long-term interests would be harmed by these circumstances, which frequently result in austerity policies that harm the most vulnerable individuals. Traoré has promoted grassroots finance initiatives in lieu of external loans. He instituted a program in which public servants and individuals donate a percentage of their income to national initiatives. This strategy has strengthened Burkinabe resilience and solidarity by encouraging a feeling of collective duty and ownership. The money raised has gone toward developing the nation's infrastructure, as well as healthcare and education. Another characteristic of Traoré's leadership has been his ardent opposition to inefficiency and corruption. He has put in place strict accountability procedures to guarantee the efficient and open use of public monies. His administration has undertaken a number of anti-corruption initiatives in an effort to create an honest government that acts in the interests of the people. Traoré's mission also includes promoting solidarity and cooperation within the region. He has taken a proactive approach in addressing shared issues like climate change and terrorism with neighboring countries, encouraging a coordinated and proactive strategy. His initiatives to fortify regional links have made Burkina Faso a frontrunner in promoting African solutions to African issues. For Burkina Faso, what does self-reliance mean? Does the banning of media affect that? Under President Ibrahim Traoré, self-reliance in Burkina Faso is not just a direction of policy, but also a comprehensive national plan aimed at changing the socio-economic landscape of the nation. According to Traoré, Burkina Faso should become an independent country unaffected by the influence or authority of other countries. This vision covers a wide range of topics, including cultural rebirth, military independence, educational reforms, and economic policies. Economic self-reliance entails lowering reliance on loans and aid from abroad, which frequently have terms that can impede a country's ability to progress. Traoré has concentrated on using the skills and resources available locally to promote economic expansion. As part of this strategy, local industries are promoted, small and medium-sized businesses are assisted, and innovations that can meet the demands of the Burkinabe people are encouraged. Traoré wants to ensure sustainable development, raise living conditions, and generate jobs by building a strong domestic economy. Self-reliance in education entails curriculum revision to take into account the nation's cultural legacy and current demands. Traoré has argued in favor of an educational system that equips students with information and abilities that are applicable to the local environment. This reform seeks to lessen brain drain and dependency on outside knowledge by producing graduates who are qualified to contribute to neighborhood development and the national economy. In terms of culture, self-reliance is about appreciating and recovering Burkina Faso's rich history. Promoting indigenous languages, arts, and customs is one way to do this, as Western influences have frequently eclipsed them. In order to promote a feeling of pride and identity in the country, Traoré's administration has started to implement programs aimed at reviving and incorporating all cultural activities into mainstream culture. Building a powerful, independent defense force that can defend the nation's sovereignty without depending on the presence of foreign forces is a key component of military self-reliance. The significance of having a self-sufficient military backed by public support and national resources has been underlined by Traoré. Given the security threats Burkina Faso faces, such as terrorism and regional instability, this change is imperative. Traoré wants to guarantee Burkina Faso's ability to protect its interests and uphold peace and security by building a strong and autonomous military. Burkina Faso's self-reliance also entails forging strategic alliances with other nations that respect the nation's sovereignty while also being mutually beneficial. By interacting with nations and organizations that uphold Burkina Faso's sovereignty, Traoré has worked to broaden the country's diplomatic and commercial connections. In order to create a multipolar and balanced foreign policy, this strategy entails looking into forming alliances with non-Western nations and regional blocs, with the goal of creating a robust and self-sufficient Burkina Faso. Traoré's all-encompassing approach to independence is revolutionary. It demonstrates a profound comprehension of the interdependence of military, cultural, and economic independence, as well as the necessity of a concerted national endeavor to attain full sovereignty. In addition to rejecting foreign interference, this vision aims to give the Burkinabe people agency over their own destiny and to cultivate a feeling of national pride and responsibility. Changes are occurring in all areas, but how is Burkina Faso rethinking its approach to security? Under President Ibrahim Traoré, Burkina Faso has redesigned its security strategy, making a daring and divisive move away from reliance on foreign military aid and toward national self-defense and regional cooperation. This new strategy is the result of growing discontent with the foreign military's efficacy in thwarting terrorism and safeguarding national security. Along with other countries in the Sahel, Burkina Faso has endured years of terrorist attacks, which have been made worse by the lack of authority that followed the overthrow of Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi. Controversial is the French military's presence in Burkina Faso as part of a larger operation to fight terrorism in the Sahel. Many Burkinabe believe that by inciting discontent among the local populace, the foreign military presence has not only not helped to alleviate the security crisis, but has occasionally made it worse. Traoré's conviction that Burkina Faso needs to take charge of its security issues in order to guarantee long-term peace and stability is the basis for his decision to remove French soldiers. The national military will be strengthened and reorganized as part of Traoré's plan to increase its capacity and independence. This entails raising the defense budget, making purchases of military gear and training, and strengthening the capabilities of regional security forces. Additionally, the government has started national defense programs that incentivize people to financially support the armed forces, promoting a sense of shared accountability and sovereignty over national security. Moreover, Burkina Faso has looked to broaden the scope of its military alliances, investigating collaborations with non-Western nations like Russia and regional associations like the African Union. The goal of this diversification is to make a security framework that is more multipolar and balanced, while also reducing reliance on any one foreign power. Many saw these new relationships as chances to acquire military know-how and support without the conditions associated with conventional Western help. The significance of tackling the underlying causes of terrorism, such as poverty, unemployment, and social inequality, is another point made by the redesigned security plan. A number of socio-economic development initiatives have been introduced by Traoré's government with the goal of enhancing living circumstances in areas of vulnerability. The government intends to lessen the attractiveness of extremist groups and foster a more safe and stable environment by addressing these fundamental problems. Burkina Faso's security plan involves encouraging regional cooperation to counter cross-border threats in addition to military and socio-economic measures. In order to improve information exchange, cooperative military operations, and coordinated counter-terrorism measures, Traoré has taken an active diplomatic approach with his neighbors. This regional strategy acknowledges the interconnectedness of the security issues facing the Sahel and the need for cooperative efforts to successfully address them. Another component of Traoré's security plan is a critical evaluation of previous guidelines and procedures. Examining the function of foreign military operations and their effects on regional dynamics is part of this. Burkina Faso hopes to use the lessons it has learned from these events to create security policies that are more context-specific, effective, and give the needs and opinions of its citizens top priority. The current query is how Burkina Faso's sovereignty is affected by criticism of Western media. A key component of Burkina Faso's larger policy to uphold national sovereignty and resist outside influences is its criticism of Western media. There is a general dissatisfaction with the way that African countries are portrayed by Western media, which is highlighted by the suspension of Voice of America and the BBC following allegations against the Burkinabe military. According to the government, these depictions are usually prejudiced and underreport good advancements and accomplishments while emphasizing violence, poverty, and instability disproportionately. For a very long time, Western media has shaped how the world views Africa through a prism that many African governments and individuals find problematic. This narrative bias has the power to uphold stereotypes, erode sense of national pride, and have an unbalanced impact on worldwide opinion and policy in relation to local realities. Burkina Faso's recent decision to suspend these broadcasters is part of a larger attempt to take back authority for its story and reputation internationally, rather than being limited to any particular news. The government's reaction to the claims of misbehavior by the armed forces is based on a larger framework of past and present media dynamics. African leaders have often voiced dissatisfaction with the way Western media portrays their nations, claiming that it frequently lacks context and subtlety. Reports frequently highlight bad aspects, like violence, corruption, and humanitarian crises, while ignoring tales of fortitude, creativity, and advancement. In Burkina Faso's case, the government argues that the stories from Voice of America and the BBC were detrimental in addition to being erroneous, possibly sparking unrest and jeopardizing national security. Suspending these channels is viewed as a preventative step to preserve the stability of the nation and guarantee truthful and unbiased coverage of its internal issues. This criticism of Western media is a part of a broader conversation about the power and representation of media. It brings up significant issues regarding who gets to tell the tales of African countries, and how these tales affect attitudes and policies around the world. The acts of the Burkinabe leadership demonstrate a willingness to subvert the prevailing narratives and advance a more impartial and differential representation of their nation. The suspension of Voice of America and the BBC has also spurred conversations about how the media shapes both domestic and global narratives. It draws attention to the conflict between press freedom and national sovereignty, with some saying that media scrutiny is necessary for accountability and others stressing the necessity to shield the country's interests from reporting that they believe to be unfair. Burkina Faso's position is consistent with larger movements in Africa and other regions where nations are reclaiming their narrative sovereignty and resisting outside influences. It highlights an increasing understanding of the influence of media on attitudes and the need for a variety of representative perspectives in the international media arena. How are these developments seen by Burkinabe and their neighbors? President Ibrahim Traoré's initiatives have been well received in Burkina Faso, indicating a strong desire for independence and self-sufficiency among the Burkinabe populace. For many individuals who have long felt excluded by outside forces, Traoré's strategy, which rejects foreign meddling and emphasizes national pride, resonates. His actions are regarded as a daring attempt to restore the nation's sovereignty and set a new direction for its future. Despite being divisive on a global scale, many Burkinabes support the suspension of Voice of America and the BBC because they see it as an essential step in preserving national integrity and guaranteeing fair representation. The general endorsement of Traoré's community-based funding projects and his denial of financial backing from organizations such as the World Bank and IMF are reflections of this mindset. Traoré has strengthened national unity by encouraging residents to participate in national projects and encouraging self-reliance. This has created a sense of common duty and ownership. Traoré's measures have also resonated with other African countries that deal with comparable issues of foreign meddling and media portrayal. These nations' leaders and populace are beginning to doubt the advantages of Western involvement and are looking at ways to reclaim their sovereignty. These countries might take inspiration from Burkina Faso's assertiveness, which shows that pursuing independence and self-reliance is feasible. It has been favorably accepted that Traoré has placed a strong emphasis on enhancing military and security cooperation. Neighboring nations understand the interdependence of their security concerns and the necessity of working together, especially those in the Sahel. Regional solidarity and collaboration have been strengthened by Traoré's aggressive participation in regional security initiatives, as well as his attempts to promote intelligence sharing and cooperative military actions. Furthermore, regional leaders have found resonance in Traoré's emphasis on tackling the underlying causes of insecurity, such as poverty and social injustice. His socio-economic development initiatives, which target enhancing living circumstances in high-risk areas, are viewed as essential measures toward establishing stability and peace over the long run. This comprehensive security strategy, which combines military action with socio-economic initiatives, is gaining popularity as a workable model for other African countries. Burkina Faso's assertiveness has generated discussions on national sovereignty, media representation, and foreign aid dynamics on a global scale. While some detractors contend that the suspension of Western media outlets compromises press freedom, others stress the significance of upholding national sovereignty and correcting biases in media representation. This discussion raises significant issues regarding the function of the media in international politics and demonstrates the nuanced interaction between media freedom and national interests. But should the media be allowed as much freedom as propaganda? Do you believe that Burkina Faso has a right to block these media sites? How should countries strike a compromise between the right to self-defense and the requirement for truthful reporting? Tell us what you think in the comments section below. Thanks for watching, and please do not forget to like and subscribe for more informative videos like this one.